You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm Weston Williams, joined by Oliver Camacho, Matt Cummings, and Ashley Hardgrave. All right, this week we go inside the huddle with Suzanne Nance, the new executive director of Wexford Festival Opera. Find out how the career of this woman of influence went from onstage to behind a mic to the C-suite. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, friend of the show Zachary James is Abraham Lincoln, and friend of the show Clay Hilley claps back at the critics. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. Click follow. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus sign. You can also stream episodes of OBS every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central at amplisoundsradio.com. Email us your hot takes by writing to mailbag@operaboxscore.com or upload a voice memo using the You Got Something to Say tab on our website, operaboxscore.com. However you contribute, you'll get an OBS beer coaster, an OBS lapel pin, and a #1 OBS fan foam finger just for sharing your own hot take. That is literally 2 weeks in a row now, ladies and gentlemen, that we have an entire panel all with me here in the exact same tiny recording closet. It's very cozy. I'll start with you, Oliver Camacho. How are you feeling?
Well, you know how I'm actually feeling, but for the audience, we are in the quarterfinal round of Wimbledon. Things are getting very exciting. And I'm sorry to report that the Filipina who made it to the round of 16 was eliminated yesterday, which is very sad, but she made the Philippines very, very proud. She is one of my new people to watch, Alex Ayala, and she's adorable with her chubby cheeks.
And speaking of people to watch, Matt Cummings.
No one can yell at me because this needs to be a safe place to admit this, but a movie that I had never seen before watching this past holiday weekend, that, like, honestly, shame on me because it's so good, is everyone ready? Have I built up the suspense enough? Are you trembling with anticipation? It's A League of Their Own. Oh my god, I love A League of Their Own so much.
Elizabeth Cummings.
I said you couldn't yell at me. Well, now I have. But
this is forceful talk. It's not yelling.
Now I have seen it, and I don't know what I was missing. I would have said before that the best sports movie was Remember the Titans, but I don't think that's true anymore.
Okay, here's your question for your hot take. Did she drop the ball on purpose?
I think she did.
Yeah, I think she did too.
I'll understand that reference one day. I still haven't seen it. Ashley Hardgrave.
Okay, now you can yell.
Don't get mad at me. Do you have anything that you're mad at aside from me or Matt?
Once again, Donald ruins everything. We're hip deep in World Cup at the moment. And once again, our dear president has decided to wade into something that was about so many other people and make it all about himself. One of our main guys, Balogun, in his previous match was given a red card. That is a little bit controversial, a little bit questionable. Some people think it was valid. Some people think it wasn't. But that red card barred him from playing in the game that happened last night in that round of 16. And then magically, FIFA reversed the decision and said that he was eligible to play. And then who had to show up and say, I called the president of FIFA? That was the president of the United States. Now, our fair men's national team did not win the match last night and thus are out of the World Cup. And many people, just like the Knicks Game 3 in the NBA Finals, are blaming the president for US's loss.
The takeaway is that there was a really good feeling about the US, because of the World Cup, because all the travelers and all the Instagrammers, talking about how cool America is and like, hey, like we did something good and like we showed people a good time and people were having a good attitude about the US, in a time when they shouldn't have a good attitude about it. And then this happens. And yeah, that's why we can't have nice things. I think that's Ashley's point.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, for the last 20 some odd days, it's kind of been the great global sleepover. People are finally figuring out that like we can actually all be friends. It's just our governments that are mad at each other and try to make us mad at each other. And so it's been a real bummer. Also, this year's men's national team was quite good. And if there hadn't been this like thing hanging over them, they probably could have had a fair shake against Belgium. Could they have won that game without this hullabaloo? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But man, did they get dog walked after all of these bad vibes. So,
well, good thing we know for sure that it was rigged because
Jesus. So, citizens of the world, know that the America you're seeing on Instagram and the experience of World Cup attendees is far closer to what the American experience is. Most of us are pretty decent people.
Yeah, and if you don't take anything else away from your experience in the United States, just remember, Waffle House is delicious. Let's talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
Suzanne Nance is the brand new executive director of Wexford Festival Opera. She's about to embark on her first season, which begins in October. I know Suzanne Nance from her radio career. She was the president and CEO and program director, I guess, of All Classical Portland. And I knew her I knew that she had been a broadcaster in the Chicago area before going to Portland. So that was my connection to her. And then I found out that there's another relationship here at Opera Box Score.
That is correct. Hey, Suzanne. A long time ago, when we were both children, we shared a role. We're together in a production that, when I did the math, was 20 years ago. But yes, so I got to explore the magical world of Così fan tutte with the lovely Suzanne Nance. So, hey, girl.
I will say that when we learned that story, we did think that Ashley and Suzanne were alternating scenes.
That would have been incredible.
Which, honestly, I would pay to produce that.
So from singer to broadcaster to program director, CEO, president, to now the Wexford Festival Opera's executive director. Their season this year includes Prokofiev's The Gambler, Rossini's The Chivocante Stravagante, I forget how you say that one, and Mascagni's Iris. And of those three operas, I think the only tune that anybody could name from those three operas together is the tenor aria Apri la tua finestra from Iris. So let's hear, before we get into this Inside the Huddle, Richard Tucker singing that with Columbia Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Fausto Cleva.
Apri la tua finestra, ior sonio, che vengo al tuo chiamar, povera Lia. Apri la tua finestra al raggio mio. Apri la tua mia calda Maria.
Today, we are welcoming the brand new executive director of Wexford Opera Festival in Ireland, coming to us from Ireland. Welcome, Suzanne Nance.
Thank you so much, Oliver. I'm so happy to be with you.
So this is the first year that you are in this role at Wexford. But before we talk about Wexford, I just sort of want the audience to understand who you are. It seems that you started out as a singer. Is that correct? Can you tell us about singing and leaving singing?
Yeah. Does it ever leave you, Oliver? I don't know. So I started as a singer and was fortunate enough to sing for a living for a while, paid the bills. And I don't take for granted how lucky I was to do that, nor how hard it was to do that. And I learned so much on the stage. I learned so much from being on the stage, from learning how to tell a story, to expressing myself through my voice, and then also just meeting incredible colleagues on the stage and learning what it was to support them day in and day out. When someone has allergies or they had a death in the family, the show has to go on. And so being on the stage, I grew up and I learned about harmony and communication and leadership. And so I loved my time on the stage. And while I was performing, I kept on getting these invitations to join broadcast entities in various ways. So I was working at what was then Opera Company of Philadelphia. I grew up in Philadelphia. And Opera Philly, as it is now, was a fantastic place to be. It was where, Stephanie Blythe was coming through and Denise Graves, and it was a really exciting time. And I got a call from WHYY down the street, and a woman who would become my mentor in development named Maggie Layden diplomatically recruited me to come and work with WHYY. So I was surrounded by icons, Fresh Air, Terry
Gross. I love her so much.
Yeah, talk about storytelling, right? Like she is, the most incredible storyteller and interviewer. So I was so excited to learn and be a sponge in that environment, but I always thought I'm going back to the stage. So I was around broadcasting. I learned about the entity and the institution of public radio and public broadcasting. But then I went and got my master's at DePaul in Chicago and kept singing. And eventually I had an invitation to work at Aspen Public Radio and also be the voice of the Aspen Music Festival in school. So it was a great combination. And that is sort of the thread that binds, the ties that bind through my whole career of how can you tell a story? How can you connect with people? How can you uplift a community through great art, storytelling, and whatever medium it is that you're using, whether it's the stage or the radio or a podcast. And I just kind of continued to grow and take opportunities as they came. And eventually I ended up at All Classical, which is where I was before I came here.
Okay, you've said so many things, and I want to pull in a couple of threads. But before I forget to say it, I have to put it out in the ether that my dream in life is for Chris Thile to fall in love with Lute Song, and for him and I to meet, and for him to want to accompany me on Lute Song and do like Monteverdi duets. And we end up on Fresh Air because, his newest album is, Seicento and English Lute Song. And, I'm his like collaborator, and I'm invited onto Fresh Air. And Terry Gross interviews us.
I can see it happening, Oliver. I'll be your first listener. I love this idea. I'll never forget Chris Thile sitting across from me and, with his mandolin. And I was talking about Bach, and he just starts like virtuosically, like riffing on Bach. He's insane. He's so talented. Yeah. I love this dream.
But getting back to sort of the transition from being an artist or being a performer to being a broadcaster, I will say that people don't know what to make of me because I wear so many hats, but there is like a thread through all the work that I've done, and it's the desire to share what I find to be beautiful and to connect people to the beauty in this world. And I did one of those stupid like workshops, like a leadership, retreat things where they bring in some guy that's really good at like getting you to think about your personal brand and like what makes you happy and like, all this stuff. And through doing that work, I realized that, I am an irrepressible artist. I will always be an artist no matter what I do. And I think that when I interview people, especially artists, they sense that I'm approaching it from the artist's perspective, and it gets them to trust me. And I know that being vulnerable, to people who don't understand what you're doing, to people that don't understand your brand, it puts walls up, but if you can show that, no, I'm in this with you, like these are my values, then you get people to open up and to be authentic. And, I would say maybe that's the skill that I bring to the media work that I do.
Absolutely. And that translates to any kind of work. When you're in the boardroom, you need to be able to understand, it's empathy, it's awareness, it's communication, it's sensitivity to what they might be going through and what they're trying to get at. And I think you do learn that as an artist, and I can see that in your work on and off the air. So absolutely.
So you're now at Wexford. This process of you jumping from radio to administration to opera administration, to me is my other dream. But before we leave the topic of radio, I was just thinking about what I knew about you from All Classical, where you were the CEO, and where it sounds like you grew what All Classical is, what it was to what it is now. That you looked for opportunities to support living composers, and you thought a lot about accessibility, while also being very kind of nichey and wide net at the same time, which is, I don't know how you thread that. And can you just talk about how you, because I think it will translate to the conversation about opera, but how you see our industry and opportunities for growth while also being very specific?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll do my best. I was recruited from Chicago to Portland. So I was at WFMT and loving it, and was really excited to be hosting the Lyric Opera Chicago broadcast, which I think does really tie into Wexford. And again, it's that storytelling. It's, sitting with Roger Pines and saying, look what's happening right now. Oh my gosh, never expected that to happen. How are we going to talk about that on the radio? So I got recruited to all classical radio, and I didn't think I'd leave Chicago because, Chicago is amazing. But Jack Allen, my predecessor, kept saying, I'm building the A-team. I'm building the dream team. I want you to be a part of it. So I went out to all classical radio as vice president of programming and the afternoon drive time host, and was promoted to CEO at a really pivotal moment for the station. And I think it's interesting you talked about your experience at that retreat. My experience in sort of learning who I am and who I want to be is I always look at how can I help? How can I be a helper? How can I find a solution? And so there was a lot of complexities in the industry at the time, and there was a lot of complexities at the station. We had just moved into a new building, and there were growing pains, and we did have a bit of the dream team. And so being handed the keys to this Ferrari, as I called it, was exciting, but we needed to make sure we had fuel and that we all knew how to drive this thing. So I applied what I learned as a singer and a broadcaster, which is, dedication, commitment to excellence, creativity, and you've got to know the product inside and out so that you can improvise when needed. And so I just kind of tucked in and started learning everything from the RF broadcasting tower, information I needed to know, how we were going to fundraise and how we were going to actually grow the thing. I think we were around number 7 in the industry. And then within 3 years, we were number 3. And then we became one of the top stations in the country. And we did that by listening more than we were talking, which is incredible because all we do is we talk. It's part of the gig, Oliver, as you well know. But you have to listen, and you have to listen to your community, and your community of listeners are so important, locally, regionally, internationally. And so did a lot of listening and a lot of study and a lot of reflecting on who we could be and what was missing in the industry. And there was a lot of work to be done. There were a lot of recordings that couldn't be played because they didn't exist. And so we leaned in together. And the team, we were all rowing, and it was just alchemy. We were rowing in the same direction. The creativity was palpable. And the love of the thing, the love of telling a story and sharing music and saying, you've got to listen to this. This is going to just blow your mind. It's so darn good. Cecilia Bartoli singing,
Vivaldi or something.
Yeah, her Costa Diva, which I think you actually spoke about on a podcast. But you've got to hear this, and that excitement, that enthusiasm. So we did become a top station and did some things that I always wanted to do behind the microphone, and being able to say yes to the team for their great ideas. It really catapulted us into a new realm for a radio station that could.
Right. And you also started this, what's it called? Amplify. That takes money, doesn't it? To find the money to pay the performers, but also, the commissioning composers or paying the publishers or whatnot. I know my radio station doesn't have this money laying around.
And we didn't either. And it was just, it was every initiative we did, it was like, how are we going to pay for this? Let's go for it because we know it's the right thing to do, and we'll find the money. And we kept our head down. We did the work. We were one of the first to name composers in residence. And our first composers in residence were 3 extraordinary women of color who came. We brought them to Portland and gave them access to an incredible recording studio at the Bodecker Foundation. And they made their recordings with artists that they wanted to work with and tell their stories. And it was powerful. And then we found a record label that would commercially, publish the recordings. And at that time, there were a lot of people in the recording industry who were saying, look, we're not making money on Felix Mendelssohn. We're not going to make it on Fanny Mendelssohn. And we kind of said, well, that's not the point. What if we raise the money and make the recordings? And there was a man named Bob Lord from Paramount Records who just got it. He was like, I will do whatever it takes to get these recordings out there. So we found the partners that were committed to it, and the money followed, the funding followed. And it was never easy, but it was rewarding. And I dare say we made a little bit of lasting change and inspired others in the industry to join us.
Well, supporting living composers is a good pivot to what's happening at Wexford. I've been looking at the history of the company, and I guess I would ask you to give the elevator pitch for what Wexford is, and eventually we could talk about how it's also supporting living composers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The elevator pitch, it's hard to contain it in a sentence. It's the most magical place on earth for artists and audiences alike. It's Wexford, Ireland, in the sunny southeast of this magical country, which, let's face it, is widely known as some of the best storytellers in the world for centuries. And Wexford Festival Opera started in 1951 against all odds, in an Ireland that, if I talk to my Irish colleagues, say that never should have happened. And that's sort of a through line with this festival, this extraordinary festival. A lot of people don't know that it was 5 friends from the town. There was 2 doctors, there was a hotel owner, a postman, and another neighbor who'd love to get together and listen to records. And they formed the Gramophone Society. And every week they'd get together and they'd spin records, and they just kind of nerded out. Like, it sounds like I would love that.
I know that.
We know these people, Oliver. Yeah. There are people. And they had such a good time. And they found one of the editors from Gramophone, a guy named Compton Mackenzie. He was a Scottish author who became famous when he wrote Whiskey Galore. This is a story about a real ship that ran aground, and it had thousands and thousands of cases of whiskey. And the townspeople decided to, quote unquote, protect the whiskey and hide it. So Sir Compton Mackenzie wrote this story called Whiskey Galore. He became an editor of Gramophone. And these 5 friends in Wexford were like, we should invite that guy over to come and listen to records with us. And he did. Sir Compton Mackenzie came to Wexford, and he said while he was here, yeah, you should start a festival. You should have a festival in Wexford. Why not? And so this doctor and hotel owner and postman, they started this festival. It was known as the Wexford Arts and Music Festival, with obscure opera as its heartbeat. And the townspeople sang in the opera, and they went to La Scala Piccola to recruit and audition the talent and bring them to Wexford. And so that what started in 1951 has now grown into one of not only the most friendly opera festivals in the world, but one of the best. It's world class. And about 75 events happen in a span of 2.5 weeks. There are pop-up concerts, and there's just art pouring out of every place around the town, and all different kinds of art, visual art, poetry. And it's a magical time to be here in October. And we put on 3 main stage operas, which is incredible. We don't have the Metropolitan Opera stage, we're not, it's literally putting up a production every night and taking it down. There will be 3 world premieres this year.
In addition to the 3 main stage operas. Okay.
Insane, amazing. And then we have an academy. It's called the Factory of Young Artists, and we've added 16 young artists to the program this year. So they'll come, they'll perform their own opera. They'll be a part of all the events that happen, and they'll learn, and they'll be part of our factory for 2 years. So it's an ongoing thing. So much community opera. The community puts on an opera.
So how big is the town of Wexford, just so we get an idea of the scale of this thing?
I want to say, I'm not going to guess because I don't want to get it wrong. So I think we should look it up for sure.
Okay.
All right, I'll do that. I'm going to look up Wexford population. But what is amazing is last year, to the point I think you might be getting at, we had 250 people descend upon the town from 25 countries. So you have all of these artists that are, they're speaking all these languages, and they're here in this little tiny town, which is approximately 22,463 people.
So not a very big town. It's like Des Plaines or something like that, even smaller than Des Plaines, Illinois. So the reason why I bring it up is because, I'm here in Chicago and I serve on a couple of boards. And there is a very famous philanthropical family here in Chicago that have streets named after them and convention centers named after them. And one of your patrons loves Wexford so much, and he is like evangelizing all the time. You have to go, you have to go. And so he said this to me. I was like, okay, and I really didn't know much about it. So I went and looked up you have like a really beautiful video that just kind of gives you, which I'm going to link to this webpage so people can watch it. But it's like a video of like, what is Wexford? What does it look like? And it's just like, it seems like this most adorable, like Hamlet, like old Europe, cobblestone streets, and all these people just like crammed into these beautiful spaces and having a great time. And they talk about, random operas that nobody will ever hear again, as if that's the opera I was meant to see. And like this year, you guys are doing Le Civico Stravagante and Prokofiev the Gambler, and I forget what your third production is, but yeah. The Mascagni Iris, which we know that one aria, Apri la tua finestra, from the tenor albums, but we know nothing else about it, But these are the shows that you guys put on, and people go crazy for them. And that is, I just can imagine people like maybe they're Irish and maybe they're from the community. And the only opera company they know is Wexford, and they go see Mascagni Iris, and they think this is what opera's about, and they love it. And they go to London. It's like, wait a second, where's the Iris production?
Right, give me something I can chew on, What
is this, Bohème?
No, I think what's amazing is I came last year before I took the role. I took the role in January 2026. And in October I came, and I watched Friedrich Delius's The Magic Fountain. And I was sitting there going like, where else in the world would I get to see this opera? Like, and De Damia by Handel, which was a huge success last year. And then Le Trouvère by Verdi, the French version of Troubadour, Il Troubadour. Il Trovatore. So, it was really, it's very interesting. It levels the playing field. You don't need your master's of music, because actually probably there are a lot of people who know these operas. They travel around the world for them, but there are a lot of us who don't. And so it's just sort of like, let's experience great art. Let's have a great chat about it over a pint down the street at Simon's Pub, and let's just be human together. And I think that that's what's so special about Wexford. There's 400 volunteers that are greeting as ushers. I mean, there's nothing like it in the world.
I think that's something we talk about on this show a lot, but that's something that I think opera administrators and boards need to hear. You're spending all this money to put on a show, to hire the best singers, to put up, a beautiful set. And then you don't think about the experience before and afterwards. You're gathering these people who want to have a special night out. And maybe it's like the one thing they can do in a month because life is expensive, So give them an experience, give them a chance to convene, give them a chance to enjoy the people that are there and have a drink, or, just be in a social space. I think about Lyric Opera Chicago, and like, I've no shade, but, the security guard is usually telling people, okay, off you go. As soon as the show's over, can't stay here.
Yeah. Not going to happen in Wexford. And in fact, the most amazing thing is, and when you come, Oliver, you'll see this, we're all greeting, like the executive, the artistic director, the chair of the board. We're all greeting you as you come in. And you enter what looks like an old house on a cobblestone street. And then you go in, and the opera house, which is one of the best in Europe, goes straight up. So you won't even know what's in there. The facade is that we just bought the houses on the street, And so you're being greeted. Like, it is literally, you are so welcome here. Talk about accessibility and heart. And you come, you might not know anyone, and you're going to leave with friends for life, because that's what happens in Wexford. It's magical. That's why Ermin Eliyahu, who's coming back this year, along with Joseph Kaleha, Georgi Manashvili, Daniela Barcelona, they're coming to do our gala. a lot of these singers had their start here. Juan Diego Flores had his like European debut here. Mirella Freni sang on our stage. And like, this is where stars are born for so many of these artists. Joseph Calleja was 20 when he sang Carmen in 1993. And like, he's coming back to sing in Iris this year. And they know there's something different. Like I think it's where they develop as artists because they're allowed to, and they develop as humans because this town wants them to, and they sort of support that.
How many seats do the main stage operas have?
Yeah, it's just over 600.
So that's a great size for people to try out their Norma. So we talked about the 3 main stage productions. We talked about the kind of auxiliary events. Can we just circle back to world premieres and what the objective there is with the living composers?
Yeah, Irish author Colm Tóibín, author of Brooklyn and other famous novels, is from Wexford, and he started coming to the Wexford Festival Opera when he was, a wee one, and he was commissioned to write the first festival. And it harkens back to the first festival that happened here.
Oh, the 5 guys that are around listening to records?
He's actually taken it to the next level. It's about these wonderful townspeople who hear that there's a festival coming. And then the artists arrive, and like passion and romance ensues, and all this, it's opera, and all these like lots of different sexy things happen in the town. And it's just fabulous love mayhem. So that's going to be really fabulous. That will be a world premiere. Colm Tóibín wrote the libretto, and Alberto Caruso has written the music, and they've collaborated quite a bit.
Will Colm be at the world premiere?
He will.
God, so now you can have all your Colm Tóibín fans like descending upon Wexford to meet him.
Yes, and while they're here, they can go to the beach that Brooklyn was filmed on, because Curriclow Beach is right up about 10 minutes away, and that's where Saving Private Ryan was also filmed, like one of the best beaches in the world.
So that was the first. Are there more operas?
Yeah, Irish composer Eilish Nareen, who she describes herself as hard of hearing, a deaf composer, and she has created, I love this, she's created an opera installation for the community opera. It's called Still Life. And it's about a man who climbs atop a flagpole, and he sits there for 40 days. And the townspeople go through all of these emotions. First, they're really like suspicious. Then they're curious. Then they become really angry. What is that guy doing up there? And so she's taken this story and she's set it in a small town, quite fitting for us. It's going to be produced in a grain store, a very old grain store here in Wexford, that lends itself to projections and text and video, and then the singers will move around. There will be instrumentalists moving around. So you'll have a really innovative, modern experience with this opera installation called Still Life by Eilish Nareen. And then the third world premiere was also written by Colm Tóibín, libretto. It's called The Next 75, and it's sort of futuristic. What does the opera festival look like in 75 years? Very modern, asking all these different questions. And that will be a song cycle that will be performed, we call them late nights. So it can happen anytime, 11 p.m., midnight. They used to go on a lot later pre-COVID, but now we've kind of moved them up a little bit. But they're the late night activities. So there's always something stimulating and inspiring to see at the Wexford Festival Opera.
Do people have to choose when they're there? Like, are there any events that happen at the same time where they have to like, oh, I can't go see that because I'm seeing this instead? Or do you guys plan it so that you have the possibility of seeing everything while you're there?
Yeah, it's really hard to see everything because there are recitals all around town. Like all the stars that come will do a lunchtime recital where you can hear this great music for 20, 25 euro. So you're seeing these incredible stars up close and personal in a local church. But you might want to go to the lecture. Like we have all 5 living artistic directors coming back for a panel discussion. So you do have to choose wisely. It's really choose your own adventure. And then there'll be a pop-up in the local restaurant, like Green Acres Restaurant. We'll have a pop-up where some of our young artists will just sing, and there'll be dancing and poetry and whatnot. So you do have to craft your adventure wisely. But we try not to double up too much. And if you come for, 4 or 5 days, you're going to probably see just about everything the festival has to offer. You'll get all 3 main stage productions. You'll get the community operas. You'll get the, we call them pocket operas. So the very first opera we performed was The Rose of Castile by Michael Balfe. And we're doing it again this year. And then we have Charles Villiers Stanford's Much Ado About Nothing as our second pocket opera. And these are performed by some of our choristers and young artists. And they're bite-sized operas that you can take in for an hour, hour and a half at a very reasonable price as well.
Well, I don't want to give away all your secrets, but for those listening, do you have any advice about where to stay if they're going to make the trip out this October?
Yeah, well, look, White's Hotel is a wonderful place to stay. The hotelier that started the festival, Eugene McCarthy, he owned White's Hotel. So, they're part of our family for decades. Or Talbot's is very good, the Ferry Carrig. There's so many great hotels nearby. And I would recommend that if folks are going to make the trip, Saturday, the first Saturday, October 17th, is when all of those 4 stars, Joseph Kaleha, Ermin Eliyahu, who I know
love her.
She loves you, I could tell by listening. Daniela Barcelona and Georgi Manishvili are going to sing in an incredible one-night-only gala performance celebrating 75 years. So you'll, make sure you're around for that performance because there's not going to be anything like it. It's really the chance of a lifetime to hear these stars together.
The 75th Wexford Festival Opera runs October 15th through the 31st. Suzanne Nance, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I've been to opera festivals in Italy and in London, England, different places, and there's just something special about Wexford.
We've been coming now since 2019. We love it every single year.
Oh, definitely come. Get the buzz around the place. It's lovely.
We're both born and bred from Wexford. It's always been a big part of our lives.
The music culture in Wexford is huge.
It just brings to life what music is and what it can do and how transformative it is.
Yes, I think the Opera Festival is great that way, that you can do something in the morning, lunchtime, afternoon and evening as well.
I'm just blown away by the talent, honestly. Wow.
And the fact that you put on rarities, it makes it even more worth coming.
Oh, just lovely atmosphere.
I have fallen in love with both the city, the people, and the people who make this opera.
It's a sense of discovery. It's completely committed. There's no sense that there's anything held back here.
Such a good night out for everyone. I think everyone enjoys it. Everyone loves coming down here.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
From the promotional video for Wexford Festival Opera, you see all those happy Irish people. After we recorded our interview, Suzanne reached out to me to correct the record. The O'Reilly Theatre accommodates between 771 and 855 people, depending on the orchestra pit configuration. And a few fun facts about Wexford Festival Opera. The Jerome Hines Theatre, the Black Box Theatre, seats approximately 175. Some of the biggest opera stars that have launched their careers at Wexford include, once again, Ermin Eliyahu, Joseph Kaleha, Juan Diego Flores, Mirella Freni, friend of the show, Sinead Campbell-Wallace, and Angela Mead. There's fireworks on opening night, which is October 15th, where tens of thousands of people will gather along the Wexford Quay. This year, hundreds of local children will also perform a specially commissioned anthem marking the festival's 75th anniversary. And finally, the town more than doubles in size during the festival. Wexford has a population of around 22,000, but every October, the festival welcomes approximately 250 artists and close to 30,000 visitors from more than 30 countries. Last year alone, audience members traveled from across Ireland, the United States, Europe, Hong Kong, Syria, and many other parts of the world. We'll put a link to Wexford Festival Opera on the webpage for Opera Box Score at operaboxscore.com. Don't you dare type in Wexford Festival Opera and try to find their website. Always go through Opera Box Score with anything we talk about here. We need those clicks.
We need those clicks. We should get like a little like an Amazon promotional link for every time we have someone get the OBS bump. That's money in our pockets. And you know what else is money in our pockets is you subscribing to our podcast on Spotify. Click follow on Apple Podcasts. Hit the plus sign. Leave us a review, but only if it's a good one. Tell your friends about how nice and smart and pretty we all are, because that's how we grow the show. And I know with your help, we can have everyone hearing about the Wexford Opera Festival. Right now, though, it's the 2-minute drill.
This just in. The 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
The Mellon Foundation is awarded $1.75 million for the preservation of the home of the National Negro Opera Company in Pittsburgh. Founded in 1941, the company was among the first black-run opera companies in the U.S. and was considered the most successful organization of its kind prior to its disbandment in 1962. The headquarters are currently owned by an organization known as National Opera House, which aims to restore the building and turn it into a center for music education, performances, and community engagement.
The Palais Garnier in Paris will stay closed for 5 years instead of the 2 originally planned, beginning in 2027. Paris Opera announced last week that the original plan did not take into account the amount of work needed to safely remove all lead contamination before the reopening, which has now been pushed back to 2032. The company's other opera house, the Bastille, will also see its planned renovation delayed until at least 2033 to accommodate the new timeline.
The art staff at Bard College is calling on the institution to fully end the school's relationship with Leon Botstein. The conductor stepped down as president of the college following an investigation into his email correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein, but as of recording, Botstein is still slated to serve as music director of several programs at Fisher Center and continues to live on campus. Reads the open letter, quote, "We refuse to perpetuate, endorse, or repeat the choices that Botstein made to implicate Bard and specifically the Fisher Center in the facilitation of abuse and human trafficking."
Washington National Opera has formed the National Friends of Washington National Opera, an organization that intends to build on the outpouring of support following the company's exit from the Kennedy Center. The organization will produce content and events aiming to connect and inspire those who have an interest in maintaining cultural institutions in D.C. Early National Friend adopters include friends of the show, Denise Graves, Mark Campbell, and Carrie Lynn Wilson.
Friend of the show, Clay Hilley, is pushing back against critics in song. The tenor has posted videos of himself singing his negative reviews to social media. One review, which called the tenor an overweight American with a voice like a meat slicer, has gone especially viral, set to the monologue of the drum major from Wozzeck. That's for you, Weston. "I'm not calling for a reviewer to be fired or to be censored," said Hilley, "but you know, I also have the right to speak back. Everybody in the world with a Facebook or Instagram, they have a platform, so why not use it?"
In an interview with France's Radio Classique, conductor Ben Glassberg admits to suffering from severe depression and suicide attempts in an effort to break the silence surrounding mental health in classical music. Glassberg, who became music director of the Grand Normandie Opera at just 25 years old, describes the field as emotionally demanding and isolating, where physical illness is openly acknowledged but psychological struggles are rarely discussed. He says the experience has reshaped his priorities, leading him to work less, value his health and family over career anxiety, and rediscover joy in music.
The Tanglewood Festival gave the premiere of Philip Glass's 15th Symphony, a tribute to the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, last week after the composer withdrew it in response to the Trump takeover of the Kennedy Center. Friend of the show Zachary James performed the role of the nation's 16th president, which included both spoken and sung passages. To speak the words of Lincoln without thinking about the pressure of singing, which is just a totally different animal, was a really special experience, said James. I was able to allow myself to be emotional in a way that you can't when you're singing, because you can't cry and sing at the same time.
University of Michigan professor Dr. Louise Toppin is releasing her first publication with Hal Leonard, Black Composers in Art Song. This collection is one of the first to offer a diverse selection of works by multiple black composers in the same compendium. The anthology represents composers from the U.S., England, and France, including both male and female composers spanning the 18th through the 21st century. The collections feature songs in English, German, French, and French Creole.
Opera Rara has announced a new collaboration with Juilliard for their Donizetti Song Project. Friend of the show and artistic ambassador to Opera Rara, Michael Spires, and friend of the show and Opera Rara artistic director Carl Rizzi will coach students on obscure songs by Donizetti beginning this fall. The songs will be presented as part of Juilliard's Liederabend series, which will include U.S. premieres. The Donizetti Song Project is one of the most important initiatives in Opera Rara's history, as its revelations have greatly widened the panorama of Italian bel canto, said Rizzi. I am very happy to see that these songs are quickly starting to find a life and a place beyond the completion of our project.
In major awards news, the Toronto Alliance for the Performing Arts, or TAPA, announced the recipients of the 46th annual Dora Mava Moore Awards. Among the opera category winners were friend of the show Royce Vavrick for librettist for Outstanding New Opera, Canuck Cantatas, and friend of the show Yeston Davies for Outstanding Performance by an Individual in Orfeo ed Eurydice with Canadian Opera Company.
In trade news, Shantae Williams, the first woman and first person of color to lead Opera Carolina as general director, is stepping down. The announcement follows a legal dispute surrounding former production director Michael Baumgarten, who sued the company over an alleged breach of contract. In response, Williams filed a personal counterclaim accusing Baumgarten of defamation. No replacement for Williams has been announced.
Meanwhile, Florentine Opera in Milwaukee has appointed Pei Xuan Tiana Lin as the company's new head of music, and English touring opera music director Jerry Cornelius will depart his position this October. Vancouver Opera has reappointed Maestro Jacques Lacombe as music director for another 3 years. And finally, the New Yorker magazine has announced the departure of their 30-year tenured chief music critic, Alex Ross.
On the disabled list, soprano Anna Netrebko has canceled her run of Trovatore at Teatro Real due to severe physical exhaustion and vocal fatigue. She will be replaced by Eleonora Burrato.
Exit stage right. American mezzo-soprano Mignon Dunn has died at 98. Tennessee-born and Arizona-raised, Dunn made her professional debut at New Orleans Opera in 1955. She went on to sing all over the world, especially at the Met, where she performed on stage over 650 times. Dunn was also a noted vocal teacher at University of Texas, Austin, University of Illinois, Northwestern University, Brooklyn College, and the Manhattan School of Music.
Illinois-born American soprano and arts administrator Erie Mills has died at 73. Mills performed all over the world during her 25-year-long singing career, but was just as active behind the scenes, serving as diction coach at friend of the show Opera Theatre of St. Louis and artistic director at Livermore Valley Opera. In 2004, Mills became the first singer on the board of directors at Opera America.
English singer Margaret Kingsley has died at 87. Kingsley studied at the Royal College of Music in London before joining the chorus at Glyndebourne. She made her solo debut there in 1966 as the First Lady in Die Zauberflöte, and later performed roles including Donna Elvira and Lady Macbeth. Her international debut came in that role in 1970 in Brussels, followed by performances in Vienna, Stuttgart, Munich, Hamburg, Karlsruhe, Lyon, Stockholm, and Naples. In 1979, she transitioned to more dramatic mezzo-soprano roles, including Verdi's Amneris, Azucena, and Eboli, as well as Wagner's Waltraute. Alongside her stage career, Kingsley taught at the Royal College of Music, where she was made a fellow in 1994.
And on this day, July 9th, our sole mentioned first performance came in 1957. It was Carl Amadeus Hartmann's Simplicius Simplicissimus, a revised version of that, in Mannheim, included just for Weston. Birthdays include American soprano Clara Louise Kellogg, born this day in 1842, German baritone Baptiste Hoffmann, who created roles in operas by Humperdinck and Leoncavallo. He was born in 1864. Odorino Respighi was born this day in Bologna in 1879. English composer Dame Elizabeth Lutyens was born in London in 1906. My husband, Austrian-based baritone Eberhard Vector, was born this day in Vienna in 1929. In 1929, it was the birth of German soprano Rosemary Ronisch, born in Thuringia. In 1940, German tenor Manfred Jung was born in Oberhausen. American baritone Timothy Nolan was born in Roten, Texas in 1941. And on this day in 1963, July 9th, it was the birth of, happy birthday to English tenor John Mark Ainsley.
And that's your 2-minute drill.
blazing fourth act duet from Aida. It was 1973 performance with Carla Bergonzi at Covent Garden, conducted by Charles Macris. There's so many versions of Mignon Dunn singing Amneris. They're always good, but she brought the heat that time. And I remember how spicy she was, even as a teacher. I have to say that I needed somebody like her when I was young to sort of put me in my place. It wasn't exactly me, but I was part of a cohort of singers who, knew about recordings and knew about other singers and would bring up other performances and maybe the bad habits of other performers in a class. And she set us straight. It's like, how dare you talk about X singer, XYZ singer. You don't know them. You don't know their career. You don't know how much they accomplished. You're nothing.
Girl.
Lesson you clearly learned since you are not naming those names.
Yeah, no, it's true. But when you're a kid, when you're a punk, you think that you know more than, whoever had a major career because they have this one, habit that you can hear in their singing. It's like, you know what? They made it. They have a legacy. You can barely sing legato.
I only encountered Madame Dunn in passing, so I don't necessarily have a particularly strong anecdote about her. But everything that I did hear about her from people that I did work with was, that's a woman. That is it was intense, but all like very high praise.
I mean, a bit of a trailblazer in sort of those first generations of American singers who like got to sing these leading roles internationally and like be considered as the real successors of the previous golden age of singing.
Ebe Stignani, Fedora Barbieri, those people, yeah.
For sure.
Erie Mills is someone I really have only encountered on an old net broadcast of, I think it was Abduction from the Seraglio, where she was the blondchen to Mariella de Villa's Constanza, and the two of them sound just absolutely stunning. They sing that like Cuckoo Bananas score with more notes than you can shake a stick at, like it's nothing. And to be able to like bring limpid tone and really like balanced and clean phrases to these phrasing to these phrases that like test the bounds of human range and lung capacity is really an accomplishment.
Yeah, I don't know her artistry that well, but I mean, I have to say, when she passed away, my Facebook feed exploded with people paying tribute to her, more than some people that I thought have had larger reputations. So she must have had a real impact on the American opera scene.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've seen some tributes myself. I do want to point out in this 2-minute drill, we have not one, but two success stories post exiting the Kennedy Center. I want to shout out friend of the show, Zachary James, who I did not know would be premiering in the Symphony No. 15 by Philip Glass as Abraham Lincoln, when last week I played him in a completely different Philip Glass opera, also as Lincoln as an animatronic. But here we are. He's been typecast by Philip Glass specifically, which I think is so funny. If you go back and listen to our show from 30 million years ago that we had with Zachary James, it was back in 2020, he tells about, I believe he says in that interview, how he got cast for Akhenaten. And he literally got, he was told by his agent to go to this specific house and just perform. And he thought he was going to go see like a casting director or something. And he knocked on the door, and the door opens, and it's Philip Glass. And he went to his house. Philip Glass played the piano during this. So it's really nice seeing this artistic relationship continue, even so many years later.
Did he say the same word over and over in like rapid succession, like 16 times? Hello,
Probably,
hello. Yeah.
He's typecast as Lincoln. Anytime anybody writes an opera about Lincoln, it's
he's just so tall.
Get us Zachary James.
Yes, it's true. Zachary James, another fun fact we learned in that interview in 2020 is that Zachary James and I are the exact same height, which is tall, if you didn't know. I also want to shout out another success story, the National Friends of Washington National Opera.
No, Weston. It is the Washington National Opera's National Friends of Washington National Opera.
I don't don't have too much to say about the organization. I think that it's good to, I think this sounds like a good program. It's great. I think that having an independent sort of more grassrootsy outreach to support the arts in Washington, D.C. is fantastic. But maybe a second pass of the name would be good.
Should have workshopped it.
It honestly reminds me of this old Onion bit that I quote all the time that no one ever gets, because it's from the Onion News Network, about how travelers at Prague's Franz Kafka International Airport need to be sure to properly follow all proper protocols.
I know that exact clip. We are so in sync. I do want to shout out Ben Glassberg really quick. It is not hard to talk about depression in any professional setting, but especially in the arts. I think there's...
Do you mean it is hard to talk about it?
Yeah, well, that's what did I say?
You said it's not hard to talk about.
It's not hard.
Health.
No, it's very hard. It's very hard.
Easy.
I think that, obviously whenever there's money, livelihoods on the line, the ability to take time off and, retreat from the public view and get better is so important, and not something that is often offered to people in any profession. And I think in the arts, it can be extra difficult, I think, because there's this sort of pressure you feel that you're like, oh, you're in the arts because you love it, right? Because you must, you must live and breathe it, and you can't really take any time for yourself. And that is something that is such a really toxic thing that has trickled into the arts. And I think it's so important to speak out about it and to say, hey, it's okay to step back and, get treatment and get better for these kinds of things. And I really applaud him for doing this. And, especially when you're so young, the age of 25, going into conducting a major house like that. And it's,
he was invited to that role at 25. So that's how famous and good do you have to be? What Klaus Makela business is that to be invited somewhere so big, so young?
Yeah, I hope Klaus Makela is taking care of himself too as he eases into the music director position here at the CSO. I also want to shout out Alex Ross leaving the New Yorker magazine. This is kind of a big deal.
The original Weston Williams in many ways.
So true. If he hadn't written Wagnerism first, I probably would have, I wouldn't have written it. I would have started it and then given up. But I really love his takes. I really love the way he writes about music. I am not a New Yorker subscriber, so most of my dealings with his writing tend to be through his books. But I have not read one yet that hasn't been worth reading, which I will say is something,
I mean, the Rest is Noise is like a big, thick book, but it was a formative experience for me when I was like back in college and really thought I didn't like 20th century music at all. Yeah. And learning about like the different forces at play and like what the composers and the theoreticians were like trying to achieve, and what that like exploration of their craft was in direct response to, at like given all of the social, political, wartime, peacetime changes in the 20th century. Like, it's a fascinating read, and it really does make you approach something. It made me approach something that I thought I was not interested in at all with like new ears, and like I can't recommend it enough.
I just want to say that he's one of the last thinkers in music who had a regular platform that is a big platform in print.
Yeah.
Yes, there are plenty of people who write about music elsewhere, but I think there's something about the end of the print generation, and I think this is a signal of it,
Yeah. Well, I am very interested to see, because, we've seen this happen with like the New Yorker magazine bumping, I'm blanking on his name, bumping him to the obituary section.
You mean Zachary Wolf? That's
Zachary
New York
Wolf.
Times.
It's the Times. Yeah.
Yeah, and all the major like daily papers don't really are like really systematically getting rid of these, people, and there are other retirements, and then a lot of them stay as freelancers. Anne Majette is still doing a lot of good stuff and things like that. But the New Yorker magazine is kind of an interesting case because it's in many ways like the last magazine, that people actually, will talk about,
subscribe to, and have it delivered to their houses.
Exactly. I would be fascinated to see if the New Yorker is going to buck the trend and get another high profile classical music critic, back into this sort of legacy media position, which still has some relevance outside of.
But how do you say high profile? There's nobody with a profile as high as Alec Ross.
Unless Zachary Wolf is just doing obituaries right now, so he's got the. I'm sure if they made him an offer, he'd probably go.
He's got time.
Could also hire me. I'm broke. So
I was like, yeah, I'll do it.
And as we've established, your profile is very high above the rest of us.
It's true. Physically,
up there with Zachary James.
Physically accurate. Speaking of critics, I do want to quickly shout out this with Clay Hilley. I love this. And I think this is also like a good opportunity to talk about like good music criticism, right? Like Alex Ross is such a, insightful and even if I don't always agree with his opinion of whether or not a specific performance was good, right? He always has something interesting to say. But Clay Hilley has taken lesser critics, shall we say, to task, comparing him, a meat slicer and calling him overweight. That is the best way to deal with people like that. I think there's always room out there for bad arts criticism, because I think they can often spark something good once that bad criticism reaches the ears of people who are willing to actually think for a second. And that I think that's the way to do it. Don't let it hurt your feelings. Make it become a funny little moment where you turn the tides and show this a bit of completely empty-headed, obsolete criticism for what it is. And, if it allows you to get the music of Wozzeck in front of more ears, I say so much the better. I really love these. I suggest you check them out. They're on Clay Hilley's, I think, Instagram and probably some other platforms as well. I have one more note. The Paris Opera, of course, is having to close down for a little bit longer because of all the lead. And all I'm saying is that when they have finally finished and gotten all the lead out there, before they invite anyone else back in, make sure they screw in the chandelier really tightly. Let's wrap the show up.
Good call. Bad call. On Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call. That's how we end the show. I'll start with you, Oliver.
A couple of days ago, a friend of the show, Andreas Scholl, shared a documentary that he made about his teacher, Richard Levitt, who would have been 91 years old this week. It was a film I don't think he expected many people to see, and it didn't really get distributed, but now it's on YouTube and you can watch the whole thing. I clicked on it thinking, I'll just check this out and watch for like 3 or 4 minutes. I ended up watching the whole thing straight through. It's so beautifully done. Oh. It's so tender and sweet. And it really helps you understand Andreas Scholl as an artist via his father figure, Richard Levitt. The documentary is called The Animal in You, and I'll link to it in the show notes for this episode.
Ashley Hardgrave.
In a clickbaity article for straight up nerds like us, there are some reports coming out and was reaffirmed in Time magazine that in the upcoming, soon to be released in 10 days, The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan has banned the film's composer Ludwig Göransson from using an orchestra in the score for The Odyssey. So, okay, now one of the things that Ludwig sort of suggested was, maybe this was a period appropriate decision. He tells Time it's not like the orchestra existed back then. So what are they doing instead? He's hired 35 bronze gongs ranging in size and layering them with some less contemporaneous synthesizers to create a stacked musical texture that Göransson is fast becoming known for. So if you're waiting for orchestra in Odyssey, too bad, so sad, you're getting gongs.
Matt Cummings.
And since I'm going to have to wait another week and a half before I can hear all those gongs, in the meantime, I am going to be listening to a new recording from last season at the Met that just showed up on their streaming platform, starring with friend of the show Rachel Willis Sorensen in Arabella, and that is a show I really desperately wanted to check out, but wasn't able to make it to the live in HD screening or New York City to see. So I know what I'm going to be listening to at work this week.
That's it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Get your voice heard and find links to stuff we've talked about at our website, operaboxscore.com. That's also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to the OBS using the Support the Team tab. Your announcer is Norm Waddell. Your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho, and your audio editor is me. The executive producer of the OBS is George Cedarquist. For co-hosts Matt Cummings and Ashley Hardgrave, with guest Suzanne Nance, I'm Weston Williams, asking you to continue the conversation about opera as you form your own chapter of Opera Box Score's National Friends of the Opera Box Score's National Friends. We're back with an all-new show next week when we get a field report from Des Moines Metro Opera and maybe go inside the huddle with Laura Wilde. Plus, you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more crying and singing at the same time. Join us.